In a world right now where we are in this strange dichotomy of needing space, but also being forced to come together at the same time, uh, art is absolutely vital and necessary for our own expression and for also making sense of what is going on. Poetry has been at the forefront of every single social movement I can think of. It is absolutely vital to this movement as well.
Even the one vine that tendrils out alone.
I've decided to find myself a home in the mountains.
And the light blinds me to the light.
And without breaking anything.
But as foolish as I can be, I let myself grab that hand.
Poetry is the seam that holds me together.
I have a friend I value here, and that's a quiet mind.
Good evening. I'm Molly McNulty, the Executive Director for the Skagit River Poetry Foundation. I miss you, and I miss the poetry we usually bring to you. So tonight, we are here together through the wonder of technology. For the next 60 minutes, Eric, Mary Rose, Echo, and I will stream poetry from as far away as Tony Curtis's Dublin home and as close as the historic Lincoln Theater. Samuel Green, the inaugural Washington State Poet Laureate, said, "We not only need literacy of the tongue, but literacy of the heart." Please join me and be poemed and uplifted and keep poetry in our schools and in our community. Enjoy the night and please give what you can. Over to you, Eric.
Thanks, Molly. Welcome and good evening, everybody. I'm Eric Christensen. I'm a teacher at Oak Harbor High School and a board member here at Skagit River Poetry Foundation. We're excited to have you with us tonight, and I'm joined by fellow board member Mary Rose.
Good evening, everyone. We are delighted to have you join us tonight at our inaugural live streaming event.
And over here is Echo, who will be interacting with you at home and keeping us updated on our donations. And how are we doing so far, Echo?
We are doing excellent. There are already 10 donations in.
Well, that's great. Well, we're here tonight practicing safe physical distancing, and we have a great show to bring you. Please use the donate button down there in the middle of your screen, and when you do, please come on back to us. We have a great show planned. We're going to start from his home in Dublin, Ireland, Mr. Tony Curtis.
One of my favourite poets is a man called John Clare, who spent many years in asylums. And he had a very arresting line that I often reach for in darker times. The line is, "I have a friend I value here, and that's a quiet mind." When Abraham Lincoln died, the Americans said, "We've lost our Moses. We've lost our leader." And one day in an asylum in Dublin, I met a man called Moses. So you put all that together, and you have my poem I'm going to read for you now. It's called In the Wilderness, and it's from my book, Tony Curtis, Approximately in the Key of C. In the Wilderness. I met Moses in the asylum, in a yellow room that smelt of sorrow. He'd given up the sweeping robes and carrying a wooden staff. He was wearing denims and a t-shirt that said, "Follow me on Twitter." In a small way, he was still leading lost souls out of the wilderness. When he stood up, he was smaller than I had imagined. Together, we read a poem about Connemara ponies. Blessed creatures, he said they were. He had the deepest brown eyes, but it is his voice I will remember. It was 10,000 miles of dusty roads. It was a parched riverbed, a dried out well, more broken twig than biblical thunder. When I was leaving, he handed me a scrap of paper with 2 lines written out in pencil. "I have a friend I value here, and that's a quiet mind." It was his map out of the wilderness.
Thanks, Tony. The work of Skagit River Poetry Foundation carries the call for diversity grace and humility into the hearts and minds of our children as they navigate the hallways of home, school, and find their places within our communities.
For the past 22 years, in schools from Bellingham to Concrete, to Oak Harbor, to Anacortes and Mount Vernon, in 8 school districts and at the Skagit Valley College, in hundreds of classrooms for thousands of hours, students, through the work of the Skagit River Poetry Foundation, have been writing, reading, and performing poetry.
I'm Lucy Shainin, student poet laureate for Anacortes High School, and I'll be reading an untitled poem. It is warm enough now to go outside, but I dare not go far. Each morning I step out with fresh eyes, ready to see the grassy island of my home made new. Yesterday, I was kin to a days-old bird, too shy to follow his siblings into the sky. Today, he has flown, free from his crumbling nest. The new grass wets my feet with dew, and I do not worry. He will return again next summer, and whether I am there to welcome him or not, our worlds will once again have been remade.
That was Lucy's original poem. Thank you, Lucy. Today, our responsibility is great. The work starts with our children, and that's what we celebrate tonight, bearing witness to hope. We place poets in schools throughout the school year to inspire hope and to build literacy of the tongue and of the heart. Your donation helps us do this. $300 puts a poet in a school for one day. Can you help us put a poet in a school for one day?
I'm Octavia Prosser, and I am Oak Harbor High School Student Poet Laureate, and this is Untitled by James Baldwin. Lord, when you send the rain, think about it please, a little. Do not get carried away by the sound of falling water, the marvelous light on the falling water. I am beneath that water. It falls with great force, and the light blinds me to the light. Poetry is just, it's a way of expression for me. It's a way that I can feel like I can freely express something, because I can write a story, but I feel like I have to create a defined plot, and with poetry I feel more free to do what I want and just incorporate elements that are unique to writing that you normally don't think of to put into your writing.
Thank you, Octavia. Our children, with the commitment of poets and teachers, are finding in themselves the courage and deep joy of life lived with wings and fire. In the 2018-19 school year, because of your support, poets were in area schools for over 170 days. This current school year saw the challenges of COVID-19. So, we worked with our partner school districts to incorporate poetry programming into distance learning. And nothing stopped the launch of our brand new Skagit River Poetry Foundation initiative, the Student Poet Laureate Project. Piloting in 3 of our school districts, and through a rigorous selection process, we identified and bring to you tonight our first 3 student poet laureates hailing from Anacortes, Oak Harbor, and Cedro-Woolley. I think you will be as awed as we were at the power of poetry these students bring to us. And now, it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you Olivia Elias, Skagit River Poetry Foundation's first student poet laureate from Cedro-Woolley High School. Gentle viewers, be prepared to be amazed.
Hello, I am Olivia Elias, and this is my poem, Familiar Hands. I realized I held myself back because of the fear that I had let overcome me. The fear that wore a costume and falsely comforted me when I faced a challenge that I knew I could accomplish. But as foolish as I can be, I let myself grab that hand and let it lead me to the place of procrastination. Fear called it home. Staying there shielded me from the echoes of anger and self-doubt all around me, the shadows that poked at my heart and stomach till they dropped and became another being. My body aching to just go back to bed to wait longer and longer. I wouldn't say I'm being kept hostage. I could leave any time, yet I choose not to. At first, this day started with silky sheets and the fluffiest pillows. Now the sheets are filled with silt, tearing at the seams. The pillows are fossils, imprints in my head lie there, waiting for me to come back down to grab more details. Fear invites my tears with harsh words, sealed in a crisp envelope. By now, I have a book that is filled with a beautiful cursive of a liar's hand. Although so beautiful, so daring, so intriguing, it is wrapped in an ugly meaning. Every word began with love and ended in intense hate. I read it like a Bible, memorizing every verse and testament. Getting on my knees, begging for the love of fear to hold me. The only thing I got was the harsh whips fear kept on shelves, labeled as abandonment. Fear told me it was better than getting hit with rejection from the outside world. I believed it, grabbing for that hand, grabbing for the sheets that became dust, grabbing at what once was us. Although I say fear has gotten me, I do believe this hand I held onto was a part of me. I'm Olivia Elias. I go to the Cedar Woolley High School and I'm in 10th grade. Poetry for me has always been a way that I could express my feelings and things that I just can't explain by just talking. So writing it down really helps me. Well, with like my poetry, it's just a line comes to me and it's usually if I'm sad or just like in a really emotional state. So that's one of the poems that came out. I think it really shows me how much I hold myself back from actually living life because of how much fear and self-doubt that I have towards myself and like being able to do certain things. And I feel a lot of people can relate to that. Being able to recognize something that stops you is like the first steps to being able to get out of that shell. Well, my teacher said that this was an opportunity, and it took me a while to really get myself to even apply or start the application because I was self-doubting myself so much. Well, probably just like the experience and being able to learn things from the older poets and not only them, but the two other student poet laureates.
In promotion to tonight's fundraiser, Tony Curtis said poetry is a wild old river. And student poet laureate Olivia shared that for her, poetry is that which finds and binds the cracks in her life. We invite you to share with us how poetry has impacted you. How have you been poemed and uplifted? Please text us your one-line responses to the prompt. Poetry is, poetry moves, or poetry gives. And you can send your responses to the number on the screen. And while your phones are out, if you're enjoying yourself, call a friend. Have them join as well. Thank you.
One of Ireland's most respected poets, Tony's been in my classroom many times. He has often said to my students that poetry has taken him around the world. And through him, my students travel as well. He has opened them up to ideas and roads of expression that they've never seen. I'm proud to call him a colleague and a friend. Once again, Mr. Tony Curtis.
So, every Christmas, for years, I sing in schools and libraries and old folks' homes. I sing Christine Rossetti's beautiful poem, In the Bleak Midwinter. And one December, 21st of December, winter solstice, I was reciting Stopping by woods on a snowy evening, a poem set on that day. And looking at the poem, I realised it is almost a mirror image of Christine Rossetti's poem. 4 stanzas, full chiming rhymes, and you could sing it. And so I set it to music, and the school children everywhere really like this. So I'll try and sing it here now. Was these are, I think I know. His house is in the village, though you will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. Watch his woods fill up with snow. A little horse must think it's queer to stop at a farmhouse near, between the wood and frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year. Darkest evening of the year. He gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there is some mistake. The only other sounds the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. Easy wind and downy flake. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep. Miles to go before I sleep. Miles to go before I sleep. Miles to go before I sleep. Miles to go before I sleep.
Like our mission says, we support literacy through poetry in Northwest Washington schools and global communities. One way we do this is with our partnership with Voices of the Children, using poems and art to link Syrian refugee children in Azraq, Jordan, and rural children in Northwest Washington. We've fostered relationships that create bonds of understanding and hope.
Hi, my name is Michael Hanrahan, and I'm going to be a junior at Anacortes High School this year. I remember the first time a poet came to my class in 5th grade. I always thought poetry was complicated, but hearing it is so much better than reading it. I also learned not to be afraid to write poetry. Over the years, I've had the opportunity to work with so many amazing poets, Tony Curtis and Daemond, Arrindell, just to name a few. And it's all because of the Skagit River Poetry Festival. Thank you for your generous donation tonight. Now more than ever, my generation needs to use the power of words to inspire, to bring hope and courage, and to paint a picture of our reality.
Through Skagit River Poetry Foundation programs, our students are not only learning to write poetry, they are learning to appreciate the multitude of diverse poetic voices and messages. And they are learning the power of poetic performance. You will see this in action as student Logan Hanrahan performs a poem by Mary Oliver.
I'm Logan Hanrahan. I go to Anacortes High School. I will be reciting I Have Decided by Mary Oliver. I've decided to find myself a home in the mountains, somewhere high up where one learns to live peacefully in the cold and the silence. It's said that in such a place, certain revelations may be discovered, that what the spirit reaches for may be eventually felt, if not exactly understood. Slowly, no doubt. I'm not talking about a vacation, Of course, at the same time, I mean to stay exactly where I am. Are you following me?
Hi, this is Octavia Prosser, and with your donation tonight, poetry can continue to enrich and reach my school and community. So if you can donate, please do, to help support the Skagit River Poetry Foundation.
Hello. My friend Philip McCracken, the great sculptor, he made this beautiful little statue, a mole greeting the sun. He was going to put this little piece on exhibition in Seattle, a gallery called the Cisco Gallery. So I wrote him a poem to wish him and his mole and his exhibition well. When it arrived in the post, he took my poem, as only a sculptor could. He put it from the floor to the ceiling on the wall, and beside it he stuck the mole greeting the sun. So I'm going to read that poem now. It's called The Mole and the Cosmos, for Anne and Philip McCracken. I have taken down a piece of the night sky just for the night. At Mole's suggestion, I have put it by the window, where it looks glorious against the mountains. Some say moles are blind, but it's just that they like to look at things far away, like stars. Sometimes when I step out to look at the night sky, I have to ask Mole, what's what and where's where? And Mole, as if he were a poor country fellow naming wildflowers, lists off the constellations. Southern Cross, Flying Fox, Bernice's Hare, Winged Horse, Great Dog, Water Bearer, Painter's Easel, Chained Maiden. Mole's deep voice, sunk like the roots of a tree, sturdy, reassuring, you just know he's right. He is, you know.
Hello, I'm Naomi Shihab Nye. So many people have turned to poems during our curious, difficult isolation time. Poems give us compassion, consolation, solace. The Skagit River Poetry Foundation has been supporting so many voices and deeper listening for a long time. Please support them with a donation tonight. Thank you.
When the Skagit River Poetry Foundation started the Student Poet Laureate program, we were not sure how it would go. Thanks to the teachers and poets, and of course the students themselves, we were blown away by the quality of applications. Our next student is very talented in words and visual art, and already has exciting plans for poetry in her community. The first Student Poet Laureate from my home, Oak Harbor High School, reading an original poem once again, Miss Octavia Prosser.
This is my untitled piece. What is at the bottom of the ocean? What do the passing currents animate to dance, and the algae claim what seems to be forgotten? Is it the Leviathan, waiting for man's passing ship, waiting for the evening upon which his angel returns? Or perhaps, is it the sunken ship, wailing in sorrow for the lives of Maria and Jack, a premature death? O sailor, I implore you, tell me what she hides under those pale blue eyes. Solace, I say, solace. If the eyes are the windows to the soul, then hers are but a reflection of me growing old. O sailor, I only wish to uncover what is beneath what only I can see. Do not keep the knowledge for only you. Do not keep the books and writings that can make my fantasies come true. Tell me what she hides under those pale blue eyes.
And you have been poemed. Octavia, thank you for that beautiful poem. The James Baldwin one you read to begin with, and then your own was gorgeous. Thank you so much for giving that to us. That was a gift. Lucy, did you really write that first one last night?
Yes.
It was beautiful.
Thank you.
And Kay Ryan is one of my absolute favorite poets. Thank you very much for doing that. So, Octavia is a student poet laureate from Oak Harbor High School. Tell me a little bit about why you applied.
I honestly wanted to interact with my community in a different way than just going through like community service clubs, and I thought this was a really unique way to bring like something that's so important to me and just introduce that into the community into different ways that I...
And then COVID-19 happened.
Yeah.
So you've been doing some other things because we are still sheltered in place. We can't get out very much. We're starting to be able to get out a little bit more. Tell us about your project right now.
Oh, so right now I'm just doing like sidewalk chalk like poems and just doing like stanzas of really long poems or like full poems that are really short, and then like introducing like, you know, different colors to make them look nice around the park and introducing like art into them as well.
And where are you doing that?
Just at my local city park.
And that's in Oak Harbor, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, that's very cool. And Lucy, why did you apply?
For me, poetry has been a really great tool to connect with other people and just understand more about myself. And I wanted to give that to other people in my community because I feel like a lot of times poetry is kind of made into a joke, you know, especially among the younger people. But I feel like it can be a really helpful tool and a great way to connect with people, and I just really wanted to share that.
Lucy, you've had teaching poets in your classrooms, is that correct?
Yes.
Tell me about how that has changed your writing, and also changed, you know, how you think about poetry.
Well, it was really great to have poets in our classrooms because we were able to not only get an idea of what finished poetry and professional poetry was like, but also we were able to share poems with each other without really any judgment.
Mm-hmm.
And so it just really made me more able to share my own poetry and to interact with other people talking about poetry.
Here we are again. This is like Tony Curtis's tour of the house. I'm in the living room. Early this year we lost John Prine, and anybody with a broken radio, a broken heart, a sense of humour and a love of Christmas was drawn to John Prine. His last album was the beautiful Tree of Forgiveness, and I think it'll be September, October time before we all get back together again after this lockdown. And on the album he has a song called Summer's End. So I'll sing that for you. And I'll sing it for John Prine and for anybody else we've lost in these last few months. Summer's ends round the bend just flying. Swimming suits are on the line just drying. I'll meet you there, pair our conversation. I hope I didn't ruin your whole vacation. Well, you never know how far from home you'll feel until you watch the shadows cross the sea. I don't know, but I can see it snowing. In your car, the windows are wide open. So come on home, just come on home. No, you don't have to be alone. Just come on home. Valentines break hearts and minds at random. That old Easter egg got no leg to stand on. I can see the you can win for trying. New Year's Eve is bound to leave you crying. So come on home, just come on home. No, you don't have to be alone. Just come on home. The moon and the stars hang out in bars just talking. I still love the picture of us walking, like that old house that we thought was haunted. Summer's end came faster than we wanted. So come on home, come on home. You don't have to be alone. Just come on home, come on home. You don't have to be alone. Just come on home.
I'm Diane Studley. I've lived in the Skagit Valley for 45 years, and I've got some good news. The Skagit Valley harbors an artistic spirit. When the Skagit River Poetry Project swooped into the valley in 1998, poetry found its home here. Since that time, poets have been welcomed into the classrooms of the 7 rural school districts in Skagit County, giving the students an unparalleled look into the world of Northwest, national, and international poets. I've attended a poet tea party at the elementary schools. I've gone to poetry slams at the high school. I've had the opportunity to be in classrooms where students are amazed that they can write poetry, and their teachers are amazed at some of the facets of the students' lives that are revealed in their poems. Last year, I had the pleasure of working in the Burlington Edison schools on an international poetry project with Voices of the Children and the Skagit River Poetry Foundation. That paired Burlington students with Syrian refugee students in Jordan. These students worked on poems with the same theme, poems that were translated from Arabic to English, English to Arabic, and each student had an international partner. Just think about Skagit Valley Elementary School children being connected with Syrian refugee children, and you can't help but support a program like this. We have a large minority population also in our districts. Most of the kids are from Mexico or have connections there. These kids get to see poets who look like them and who speak like them. It's a wonderful opportunity. So please join me in giving generously to the Skagit River Poetry Foundation during these unprecedented times of virtual fundraising. Thank you.
Daemond Arrindell is a force of nature. His passion and artistry light a fire and gives poetic voice and a platform to speak to all students. We are so proud to have worked with him over the years. From Seattle, Washington, poet, teacher, Daemond Arrindell.
Poet Ruth Foreman said, "If you write poetry, go to the ground. It should make the ancestors put down their pipes and let you tell the story." So, I like to consider myself a poet because I go to the ground. Because sometimes I sit down with a pen in my hand and I write. Poetry is what fills in the cracks and the fissures of my psyche plates that are either mashing against each other or drifting apart. Poetry is the seam that holds me together. Now, I do this stuff part-time because I've only got part of my senses. The rest are spent partially putting back together the parts of our sons and daughters that are pushed to the back of the bus, kept under lock and key. Kids who have parts of their self-esteem intact and the rest just a trail of breadcrumbs lost in the forest of adolescence. See, I like to consider myself a poet. But as for delivery, the stage is not my forum. I tend to lay it down on the front lines, where I can freestyle freedom to miniature adults with souls the size of angel wingspans who imagine their brightness shines with the intensity of a hallway nightlight. But beacons that small are easily underestimated. Like living lighthouses, they can guide a 5-year-old through the maze of monsters in the dark to safe harbor beneath the covers. I speak to fairies who have forgotten the pouches of pixie dust in their possession, to trolls who don't know they were meant for much more than terrorizing trespassers or hanging out under bridges, and I never bend down to reach their level. I find it better to lift them up to mine with the hope that they'll like the higher altitude and eventually give gravity the finger, because faith in falling never saved anyone's innocence, and Father Time's contracts carry no loopholes for the young. I've become more of a station agent than a preacher. I do a lot more listening than teaching. I am more receptor than reactor, more student than storyteller. I have become the Pied Piper in reverse. My ears still burn from the stories that have licked them. Ugly ducklings caught in a perpetual hunting season. Boogeymen masquerading as stepfathers. Mothers bewitched by pill bottles. White knuckle, breath held in the throat, keep you up late at night stories that'll never make it to the front page. Because I was the only one who sat still long enough for the ricocheting eyes of the teller to focus on me. Read mine as 2 guidelights and not oncoming headlights 2 seconds before the impact. I encourage these children to craft limbering language out of lofty aspirations, to sing without shame to their I think I can mentalities, and to pledge undying allegiance to every imaginary friend who has ever had their back. I tell them, when they speak that true, they challenge the glands in their mouths to produce salvation in the form of saliva, enzymes that will break down anything that falls short of it. And as for me, I just keep listening, because their poetic voices are just like bellows for the fire. My fire. Thank you. Poetry for me is the way that I make sense of the world, or try to make sense of the world. It is an art form that is incredibly accessible. All you need is a pen or pencil and something to write on. I think I've been teaching with Skagit River Poetry Foundation for about 6 or 7 years. It's been a wonderful experience getting to go to communities that I probably never would have traveled to, never would have had a firsthand experience with, and getting to work with students from those communities, looking at helping them tell their own stories and getting to experience them learning a little bit about themselves as well. In a world that is very focused on media, a lot of those stories get overlooked. We get to see big Hollywood. We don't typically get to see small town. We don't get to see interactions between parents and children. We don't get to see interactions that happen at the regular grocery store or in the school firsthand from the community. Poetry provides an opportunity for students to tell their own stories in their own voices.
This is the kind of genius, gentleness, and artistry we bring to our students. Daemond is one of 17 teaching poets working in our schools. Here are the stats. It costs $300 a day to place a poet in a classroom for a day. In the 2018-19 school year, poets were in area schools for over 170 days. That's 850 hours in 500 classrooms, stimulating the minds and reaching the souls of 15,000 students. That's a lot of learning. That's a lot of heart. If you have contributed to the Skagit River Poetry Foundation in the past, you helped make this happen.
I'm Phil Brockman. I'm the school superintendent here in the Cedar Woolley School District. Well, I've been involved with the foundation for the last several years, I think 5 or 6, 7 years, mainly because of Molly McNulty contacting us here at the school district and working with us to get poets in our schools. We love the poets in our schools. We've supported that at both the elementary, well, K-12, at all our levels. And so I just think it's a great experience for our kids. Oh, it's so important. You know, the creativity, the expression, developing vocabulary, and it's fun for our kids. I love it when I get invited to a classroom where they've been working with one of the poets in the classroom, and the kids are writing their poems, and then they get to read them out, and I just think it's really cool stuff. Yeah, we support them in a couple of ways. So we'll add through our budget for our schools, classroom budgets to support poets. We also support the fundraising events as well, and my wife Tamara and I certainly support that at all. But within the school district itself, we think it's a valuable resource and valuable opportunities for our kids. So we support poetry and specifically the Skagit River Poetry Program.
Hello again. I'm going to read a poem from my book, Folk. The poem I've chosen is the first poem I ever wrote in the Skagit Valley. I was staying with my friends Jerry and Kathy Willens, and I wrote this poem looking out across the wide fields in front of their house. And the poem is called The Skagit Valley Beekeeper. Back home, my door looks out over a wild sea where boats come and go. Here, doors look out across miles and miles of blueberry bushes. They make me think of frost. Blueberries as big as your thumb. But it is only May, so early in the season the bushes are all empty-handed. Yesterday, sitting in a diner in Burlington, eating ham on rye, a farmer came in and slid onto the seat beside me. Wendell, the waitress called him. God damn cell phones, he snarled. They're messing with my bees. The signal has them so dizzy they could not find a sunflower. He said it in a way that was not funny, for here was a man whose livelihood depended on a pollinating bee. Now, Wendell, the waitress said, don't be bothering the preacher. Sorry, sir, but Christ, I have to fly in bees from Alabama. And as we sat there in the silence of that Burlington afternoon, the waitress counting bottles, Wendell eating fries, I just sat there praying. My cell phone, my bee immobilizer, would not ring, not even with a buzz, buzz, buzz from you to help pollinate our love. Love poem.
And now, another student reading a classic poem. Please welcome from Anacortes High School, Michael Hanrahan.
Hello, my name's Michael Hanrahan. I'm a sophomore at Anacortes High School, and today I'm reading a poem called Spring is Like a Perhaps Hand by E.E. Cummings. Spring is like a perhaps hand, which comes out carefully out of nowhere, arranging a window into which people look while people stare, arranging and changing, placing carefully there a strange thing and a known thing here, and changing everything carefully. Spring is like a perhaps hand in a window, carefully to and fro, moving new and old things, while people stare carefully. Moving a perhaps fraction of a flower here, and placing an inch of air there, and without breaking anything.
It is my pleasure to bring back to you Student Poet Laureate Lucy Shainin from Anacortes High School.
A Certain Kind of Eden by Kay Ryan. It seems like you could, but you can't go back and pull the roots and runners and replant. It's all too deep for that. You've overprized intention, have mistaken any bent you're given for control. You thought you chose the bean and chose the soil. You even thought you abandoned one or two gardens. But those things keep growing where we put them, if we put them at all. A certain kind of Eden holds us thrall. Even the one vine that tendrils out alone, in time turns on its own impulse, twisting back down its upward course, a strong and then a stronger rope, the greenest, saddest, strongest kind of hope. please consider donating to support students like me. Thank you.
The power of literacy is thinking deeply, thinking with courage, reflecting and cultivating a thirst for understanding. We do this work together. We've learned during this pandemic and time of self-isolation that we need the body of us, the hope and inspiration we find in our relationship with each other. Our work in the schools continues with distance learning. Our teaching poets developed literacy lessons for our students and teachers during the school closures. We don't know what the fall will look like, but I know our poets will be there to help, and I hope you will be too.
Thank you for tuning in and donating, and thank you for being part of this special live event. And speaking of that, let's check with Echo. How are the donations, Echo?
Things are looking great, but remember, both the broadcast and the donation link will remain live for a few weeks.
We are off to a wonderful start. The next generation of artists, commentators, innovators, our students depend upon your generosity. We're a generous community. Thank you.
Thanks again, everybody. Good evening.
Of all the money e'er I had, I spent it in good company, and all the harm whatever I done, alas, it was to none but me, and all I have done for want of wit to memory now I can't recall, so fill to me parting glass. Good night and joy be with you all. Of all the friends ever I had, they are sorry for my going away, and all the sweethearts ever I had, they'd wish me one more day to stay, but as it falls unto my lot that I should rise and you should not, I will gently rise, softly call, good night and joy be with you all. Good night.